The opinions expressed on the following audio program are solely those of the host and the guests. Burner Podcast is an independently produced, not-for-profit show and is not associated with the Burning Man organization or its subsidiaries. The views expressed are not representative of the entire Burning Man community and are presented here for entertainment purposes only. In short, calm the fuck down. It's just a podcast.
Hey, it's episode number 43, and only 349 days till the man burns as of this recording. It's our first show back from the burn. We did take our annual hiatus. I remember the first year we did it, I was so adamantly against it, but producer Meg, who is now executive producer Meg, by the way, said to me, don't worry about it. It's expected this time of year. People take hiatus from projects. And I was like, no fucking way. We are never taking a week off of show. Never, ever. And then on the drive out to Nevada, I suddenly realized that I'd completely forgotten to do a show. And I mean, like, I had like the interviews in the archives. We'd recorded the main segment of the show, but I in all the playa prep madness, I just completely forgot to record an intro and edit a show together. I'd never experienced memory loss of that magnitude. It was like really like something like showing up to the office with no pants. And my brain like could not compute how that was even possible to forget to do an entire show. I've been doing this shit for like 7 years. But that's Burning Man. It'll do that to you. So I messaged producer Meg and conceded that taking an annual hiatus is a tradition that we can start. And then I got to have a similar experience with Navjeet and Amber Rose this year with Alkaline, where I was the Meg and they were the me. So on that note, by the way, I hope you've checked out Alkaline. That's Burner Podcast's DJ Mix show. It's pretty cool. We've already had a crossover event. You can listen to an interview with the legendary Lee Reynolds on this show, and then listen to an exclusive mix by him on that show. I'm like the Jon Stewart, and they're like the Stephen Colbert. I'm so glad I got to use that reference, by the way. In like another few months, I'm pretty sure it's not going to be relevant anymore. Also, stay tuned to burnerpodcast.com. We've got a website facelift coming thanks to our newest team member, Miley, working tirelessly to create a new Burner Podcast Network hub on the web for your navigating pleasure. I don't know about tirelessly, actually. She could get on it a little faster. But anyway, since it's our first show back from the burn, we thought it would be really neat to do a roundtable about our recently passed burn. I mean, the one that just happened. But instead of bringing back our staff like we did on the pre-burn show, we thought it would be cool to bring back a couple of this podcast's alumni. So in a minute, you'll be hearing a couple of familiar voices along with a new one. Jake Holler, whom you'll remember from our Electric Poncho episode. That was episode number 13. Jake is also the co-lead of Utopia, the San Diego regional burn, so you can also catch him on episode 18 of this show. Also in the room, you're going to hear the voice of Pink Jesus himself, John Halcyon. We had him on very recently with episode 39, and he's already back because, it's fucking Halcyon. And our third is Fred Heald. His resume of experience at the burn is too extensive for me to get into, so I'm just going to let him break that all down for you once that segment begins. You're going to hear us chat about the evolving culture of Black Rock City, our own experiences with the varying personalities and politics of the community, and some of those controversies social media just isn't shutting up about, like White Ocean. Yeah, we're going to also not shut up about that. I got to tell you, I don't think I have ever stopped recording a show and thought, boy, am I glad I stopped recording. We could have easily gone for another hour with these amazing gentlemen in the room. But as a wise man once said, art is never completed, it is simply abandoned. Today's episode is the post-Burning Man 2016 Roundtable. Boy, that's kind of an uninspired name, isn't it? I'd fire someone if anyone on my staff was getting paid anything. I almost called it the post-Burning Man Bitch Fest, but I was like, yeah, we didn't really bitch that much. We had a pretty awesome burn. Anyway, I go by Mr. Arash, even though nobody calls me Mr. Welcome to Burner Podcast.
On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all the life. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rain. The first thing I met was a fly with the balls and the sky with no clouds. The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no name.
Fred was the first one to take off his pants, just for the record.
Like the new trendsetter.
Saw Fred out in the parking lot. He's like, "Oh, when I think I saw your car come in, it was a SUV. It looked like it was a Dusty." Okay, so that's what I saw.
Maybe a little.
I mean, I saw that. I'm like, okay, that's got to be Fred. And then Fred's like, "I'm gonna go use the restroom real quick," and he comes back out in a red dress. Anyway, you guys were talking about podcasts, and we were just basically rambling off about how people enjoy feeling like they're tuning into like a random conversation. So here,
Cheers.
Thanks for hosting us, by the way.
My pleasure.
Clung. Okay. Anyway, so today's recording, like, it's almost like came to be this kind of thing. It's almost like the Real Time with Bill Maher episode of Burner Podcast. There was like a few different topics that I wanted to go over, and some of this got sparked off from a blog entry that our contributing editor, Tanasi, wrote on the Burner Podcast blog, which caused a bit of a stir, like even within our own team. And he wrote about the stuff that happened with like White Ocean, and there was a feeling amongst the team of like, here we came back with like this high from the burn, and then the first thing that came out of Burner Podcast was like negativity. Which I'm not sure where I'm at with it. We don't do censorship. That's the main thing. Like, we're not going to censor anybody's opinions. But it did give me the idea of like, holy shit! Like, if we should have a very good post-burn roundtable where we get a lot of these different aspects and a lot of different ideas and different input. And that's sort of where this episode was born from.
Of course, it's an interesting phenomenon that, you know, like, by the time I got back into civilization from the burn, the things that were posted on my Facebook wall from non-burners was White Ocean and Exodus. and I'm like, this is crazy. This is like, I said, this is like witnessing the birth of a child. And then you get on the phone and go, oh my gosh, the afterbirth was so gross. Like, dude, you just watched miracle after miracle after miracle, and the one thing that you make your story about is this, like the few negatives. Like, yeah, those things are weird and sucky, but compared to, I mean, my experience and everybody I talked to was, as a whole, this burn was off the charts, like magical, transformative. I mean, the experiences. I mean, it was my 19th year. By far the most impactful and meaningful that I've ever had.
Well, let's do this. By the way, we're going to get into all of these subjects. We're going to actually there's going to be some structure to today's show, which is rare. Like a little tiny bit.
You think there's going to be some structure?
I assure you, it'll go off the rails. For one thing, there's a bottle of wine here. We're going to go off the rails.
All right.
But we're going to go around real quick and just do introductions, and I want you guys to. Halcyon obviously needs like the least amount of introduction here, including myself, the host of the show. But just the real sort of background on, say, your name, background on sort of like what your history with the burn is, what number this is for you, a little bit about yourself so that the listeners can associate a voice with what the person they're hearing. So we'll start with Halcyon real quick.
I'm Halcyon. I like to break the rules of format for discussions. So my apologies. This is my 19th burn. I have been making videos about Burning Man and how to appreciate Burning Man and the principles for well over a decade. So those are on lustmonkey.com. I have all these how-to videos, and then I blog for burningman.com, and I run Pink Heart Camp. This is our 7th year running Pink Heart.
This is the fastest, by the way, that a guest has returned to the show. You were on like 4 episodes ago. So
I've been outside your window staring at you.
Oh, last time must have gotten real weird for you. There's a lot of bunnies in my place. Jake. Also a returning champion, by the way, Jake.
I'm Jake Holler. I am the producer of San Diego Utopia, San Diego's regional burn. I also am a co-conspirator with Miscreant Camp and General Rabble Rouser.
What burn is this for you?
This was 9 out of 11.
Yeah, and you were also volunteering this year. You were working on Playa.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I was working with Gate.
Awesome. Fred.
Fred. This was burned 14 out of 19 years. Wish I'd done all of them. Life gets in the way. And I've done my own art projects. I've done group art projects, big camps, small camps, volunteering, and a lot of stuff around here. Did the first decom before there was any idea of any of that, and just a long time San Diego person. And I've been volunteering at the Playa for about 7 years.
Awesome.
So.
Yeah, and it's my connections with everybody here. Fred was one of these people that I sort of connected with you online before I ever met you in person, and I always drop like the hip hop references because the other scene I'm in is the hip hop scene, and like Fred always was like I would look at him as like he's one of the OGs in the San Diego community. So
there were times when we had beach burns, and it was just me and Pyro Joe. And then a couple of times Dr. Techno and Dr. Random, and that was the group.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And Jake, I'm not sure if we talked about this on the episodes that you were on, but I mean, Jake was pretty much the lubricant for me to discover this community because I discovered it through a mutual friend of ours, my first Utopia.
A good friend of mine from high school.
Yeah.
Fox.
Yeah. So, yeah, I hope he listens to this. But, and of course, Halcyon is fucking Halcyon. Okay, so
I'm supposed to say hi, Pink Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, thank
From
you,
several
my son.
people.
But let's talk about that. So this burn, like you were just saying, John, about how this was just the most transformative one you've had.
Right. Oh, I mean, we can go back straight to White Ocean. I didn't mean to hop through that.
No, it's okay. We're going to get to that for
Okay.
sure. But I that actually touches on a subject that so as soon as I got back from Playa, everybody kept asking, how was your burn? And I've made it a practice to not ask people that as a response because the answer is amazing. The answer should be amazing 100%. Even if you didn't have as much quote unquote fun as you were expecting to have, the answer is amazing. And if your answer was anything but that, then you're wrong. I'm sorry. There's lessons to be learned, and maybe you weren't enjoying the lessons that the universe was handing you. But so the question that I like to ask is, what did you take away from this burn?
I've actually been liking it when people ask me how my burn was because it was my fucking best burn. like hands down. It was the best one yet. Like out of control. But
why is that?
Everything was just awesome the whole fucking time. It was like everything just like worked out perfectly. Through the whole thing, I did this mentorship thing with the DPW. I worked Gate. I had an awesome camp that came together out of nothing. I ran into tons of people that I wanted to run into. Everything was just fucking awesome.
How long before the gates opened did you end up on Playa?
I was there Tuesday before Gate.
Okay.
Tuesday afternoon.
Okay. So you were like almost like an intern.
Kind of. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Except they didn't really let me do any work, which
yeah.
Kind of. Then I worked with Gate, so
yeah. Cool. Fred, how long before?
I got there on Friday night or
Okay.
Saturday morning.
Okay. And John?
And I got there Thursday midday.
Okay. Cool. Well, I want to know what was it that you took away from this burn?
Can I? What you just said
Please.
about like the it's not about like how much fun you had. It's about like what did you get out of it and what did you learn. And one of the huge epiphanies that I had this year was that, we don't do it because it's easy. We do it because it's hard. You know, and there is, you know, if you're going to live your life in a way where you are passive and you go to your job and you go home and watch TV, then when you go through struggles and you have suffering, it feels wasteful. Because what's the point of having any sort of discomfort? But if you are going to step up and have any sense in the world of being a leader, an educator, a parent, you want to have any sort of role of being a big in the world, then you need to have training. You need to fucking go to the dojo and get your ass kicked every once in a while by a master. And Burning Man is a life master that fucking hands you your ass over and over until you get better at it. And it's like, if you can really shift your head like that, like you don't curse your sensei as he's kicking your ass. You go, thank you for this lesson. And I think that I had this like epiphany at the burn this year as I was like getting my ass handed to me. I'm like, okay, this is my reward for like stepping up in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Growth, I mean, it's been my experience, at least in life, that any meaningful growth is always prefaced with discomfort or pain of some sort. In order to let your muscles get bigger in the gym, you're going to have to tear them down. You know, and that's the faster something goes up, the faster it comes down. Like we actually talked about this on your episode. Yeah. So burners were kind of a glutton for punishment. So mostly we kind of like that.
I mean, if you take a step back, the whole concept is intentionally doing something very difficult in a non-forgiving place, you know, and it's like survival camping and then adding onto it as many wacky things like serving sushi, looking fabulous, bringing incredible sound system. Like you keep adding things until it's like, that's impossible. Because you find your edge and you stretch. Like you said, you break down your muscles. You find your edge, you stretch. You find your edge, you stretch. And then after a decade, you're like, holy shit, I'm a different person.
It's actually a prank. Danger Ranger does this talk and he explains how Burning Man is actually a prank. Pulled against everyone who goes to Burning Man.
Can you tell more about that?
About his talk?
Yeah.
Or what? So it's called like Coyote Goes to Burning Man, and he just goes into like the prankster archetype and like lays out all kinds of funny shit.
Yeah.
It's great, but yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about pranks in just a second. But what was your biggest takeaway from this burn, Jake? Can you think of one?
Yeah, so they're two big ones. One of them is I can't drink, thank you, and the other one is that, you know, dealing with people and working things out and like building community like fucking pays off hard.
Amen.
Yeah. It makes the partying a lot more fun. I mean, that's really the reason I work my ass off whenever I can. But Fred, what was your biggest takeaway?
I think I hadn't been for 3 years, and it really felt like home.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me, so where is Center Camp? And I thought, how could you not know? Okay, picture a giant clock, and no, not a giant cock, a giant clock. And so for me, it really felt like getting there was just like, oh, here I am. Oh, I can relax. That whole world thing I've been pretending to do for these past 4 years, that's just illusion.
Yeah. And
this is what feels solid, and I understand, and I know, and I have experience. And I would say, and counter to what you said before, for me, it wasn't amazing. It was great. It was a really good experience. It was same as it ever was.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's sort of, no, 3 years, 5 years, it hasn't really changed that much. It's changed, and we'll hit on that. Yeah. But it feels like it should feel.
Yeah, that's actually excellent, because it's so common for us to hear stories from veteran burners who are complaining about how much is changing and it's not what it used to be. And you skipped 3 years and now you went back and you're like, nope, this is fucking perfect.
Yeah.
Can you, what is it that you think people are, the ones that are upset about that change, the ones that are not comfortable with it, do you have a pulse on why they might be? Why their experience is different than yours?
So I talked to people out there about this year, and people like Edgy and Dangerous. Edgy and Dangerous is fantastic. Gives you a rush. it enhances your experience. It makes it more intense. It also hurts people. It also injures people. It also kills people. In 90, I listened on the way up. I listened to another podcast about the 96 burn. A couple of people got killed. Yeah. And they said, hey, Larry said, we got to either shut this thing down or make it legit. And ever since then, they've been moving step by step by step toward legitimacy and making things a little more organized, a little more practical, a little more down to earth. And that affects all sorts of things. It affects them in good ways, and it also affects them in sort of not so good ways. And so that's the biggest thing, is I see this sort of slow drift toward legitimacy.
Yeah. It's almost like you're super into this band, and then they get signed by the big label, and all of a sudden...
They used to be good. I used to listen to these guys before.
Same fucking band.
I think that one of the things that was powerful this year, and is what Jake kind of touched on, like everything just kind of worked out, and I think that the idea of, playa magic for years, that's always been something like, holy crap, like things just work out. Like I needed one ingredient for this recipe, I said it out loud, and suddenly somebody drove up with it. I need a rare battery, and suddenly the guy next to me had I was
walking across the playa, and I met this woman who was taking her art project down, and said, oh yeah, a couple of years ago I had an art project just like this out, or sort of like this out here, and mine was all about people's secrets. And she said, oh yeah, mine's about people's secrets too. Like, well, of course it is. Right. That's playa magic. That's how it happens.
And I felt that and saw that happen in a strength this year that I'd never felt. And I saw like people experience this like energetic, in a way that I think that if I would have seen it or been told about it 10 years ago, I would have said, I don't believe you. This didn't really happen. Like I was out of the temple, and this guy, who I guess I'd met previously, but he walked straight up to me. He was like, all like, looked panicked kind of, and and I'm like, oh, I put my arms out, and he hugged me, and he starts crying, and he starts crying hard, and then he's like buckling, and I'm using all my strength to hold him. He's like, things are going through it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is intense. And so I'm like trying to calm him down. After like 5 minutes of going through this, I'm like, I don't know what to, like, he's like, this guy isn't. And I finally calm him down, and he's like, what happened? What just happened? And I'm like, well, like, you might be on some drugs. And he's like, dude, I'm dead sober. I'm like, what? He goes, whoa. Well, this is a really spiritual place. He goes, I don't believe in religion. I don't believe in spirituality. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, dude. Like, this is a really charged place, and something just fucking went right through you. And he was like bawling and crying. He's like, I don't know what to do. And it's like,
what the fuck?
Yeah. And it's like, he's like, look, listen to me. He goes, yeah. And he just had this like waves going through him, and I'm like, I don't know how to explain this. I've touched on this a little bit at Burning Man in the past and felt it, but it felt like the volume on that was turned up in a way that, for me, the last week was crossed the line into something spiritual in a way that I can't deny. Like that changed me.
Yeah. That's fascinating. When people would ask me, how was your burn? The most interesting experience I had this year is that I didn't have any wild and insane stories. And I feel like I realize now, just from talking to you guys, that I think the reason that was is because everything worked out the way that it was supposed to. And I've just sort of like gotten in tune with trusting that everything's going to work out. If I need something, it's going to show up. And at this point, it's become normal. It's the new normal. That's fascinating. And I wonder, we really should be studying what the fuck is going on out there, like connecting neurons to people's brains, because there is without a doubt a magic that happens out there when you put, what was it this year, 70,000? Was it at our peak?
There was a magic when there was 8,000.
Yeah.
Have you taken the burner the burner census?
I have.
Okay.
I have.
That's like, you're talking about studying it. They have a lot of questions about kind of things like that. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah.
I actually started an episode of this show with the intention of exploring that, and it got way fucking woo out there. I couldn't figure out how to get the story on straight.
The woo that I heard this year that was interesting, and I don't believe the word of it, but it was still interesting, was that the spirits out there feed on emotion. And they force people to open up and expose their emotions, expose themselves, and they suck down that energy. And interesting. Yeah.
Well, when you have that many people out there who are coming out with the intention to open up, there's a lot of energies that are aligned. And it does sound like crazy woo-woo shit, but that's one of the things we've chatted about with other guests on the show, is that there is without a doubt something happening. We may just not have the scientific instruments in place to measure what those frequencies are.
I left the burn this year with a conviction of that truth beyond anything I've ever spent. Like, could I tell you, share an experience that I had?
Please.
So I was, I'm pretty flighty and all over the place and manic, and I usually don't go to a place where I have to wait in line. I usually don't listen to lectures unless I'm speaking. I can't just sit in one place. There's just too many things to do, so many things that people to meet. And I was going through center camp, and I had this tractor beam feeling like, go to the right. And I got pulled over to somebody who's speaking on stage at center camp. And his name was Nathan, and he was speaking about the maker movement. And I literally was like, stay here. And I started listening to him talk about the maker movement, and my body started just like vibrating. Like I was like tingles all over my body. I'm like, what the fuck's happening? What the fuck's happening? And I'm like, I feel like I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be here. And as he's talking, he was talking about how with the maker movement and maker spaces and 3D printing and crowdsourcing, we have this ability for creative inspiration and creative genius to now be manifest in ways that up until 5 years ago, you had to raise capital in a capitalist way. You had to have a venture, you had to make a business plan, and you had to have return on investment. And for the first time, there's now these methods where if a kid has this genius inspiration that comes through him from a place that's you can't explain, these artists that create things not because you can't help it, something comes through you, and we now have the means for people to create prototypes, create products, create solutions in this way that it goes outside of our traditional commercial system. And so I'm like, oh my god, like I had fallen into a level of pessimism about how we're ever going to get out of the state of the world. And as he was talking, it was like this download of like, this is the path out. And the fact that I got pulled to it as it was happening, I was vibrant. I was like, I can't explain this. I can't explain it. But as he was talking, I shifted into an optimism in my headspace that changed my entire life.
Yeah.
Quick plug. San Diego Collab is SDCap, the nonprofit that throws Utopia's warehouse / makerspace, where we have a free to the community to use laser CNC router build space, soon to be probably like industrial sewing machine and some other things.
And the epiphany I had,
we're working on some more things.
Is that is actually a tool of the spiritual revolution of our planet, because that is the way that divine inspiration is going to be able to manifest in the world. Yeah. So, like, amen to collab.
Yeah. I was there last night for the SDCap board meeting, and it's like, I was so moved. I'm going to write like a blog post about this, but it was so moving to see that we have these people, these amazing people who are volunteering their time to cultivate our community. And there was like really spirited debate about like insurance and like things we need to do to get Utopia set up so that everybody has an amazing experience and has a good event. And, I've been in a lot of meetings, like in office buildings, and it's a lot of people sitting or like wanting to talk so that they can hear themselves talk. But every point that was being made at this meeting was super legit, and people were passionate. And I was just sitting there like, wow, like here are these people who are spending their time and using their talents and their resources so that I can have a community. And it's really incredible. And there's a few different cities around the world with burner communities that have something like Collab. But we are, without a doubt, in San Diego, really blessed to have access to this thing.
It's awesome. So I spent a week at the Generator in Reno, leading up to the burn, and it's inspiring, and that's where they made the Space Whale, that's where they made Embrace, and the whole peer group does stuff, and it's like, those things could never be without a makerspace.
Yeah. We're slowly working towards having something like the Generator, like that's like.
It seems like you mean like a larger build space?
Larger build space, more stuff.
Yeah. If they could build Embrace there, I'm sure they have a lot of...
It's huge.
Real estate.
There is the other important side of that I see as being one of the amazing seeds of Burning Man is when I went, long ago, I wouldn't have said I was an artist. And then I saw this shit out there that I can build. I could make one of these. I could, all I need is a router and a saw and a this and a this, and I can make one of these. Yeah. And every year that steps up a little bit, and every year the inspiration steps up. And we get to a point where, like, I look at your camp, and I think, fuck, this is amazing. But I can see that I could get 50 people together, and we could do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's also a barrier that ends up happening where I look at the man this year and think, that's somebody else. That's too hard for me.
Right.
Maybe if there was a giant, massive makerspace and a whole lot of help, but it's bigger than my brain. Or I look at White Ocean and think, I can't build that camp.
But I think that's part of the magic of Burning Man. Like, you're not responsible for making everything at Burning Man.
No.
You're responsible for figuring out what it is you're inspired to make and make that. And that actually, so that idea of you're an artist. So, like, I put out a video, like, 2 weeks before the burn that was called You Are an Artist. That was trying to encourage people to, like, shift that headspace, especially virgins, from I'm going to check it out to you are part of this. Like, whatever it is that you have to share is part of what makes it burn. And it kind of went viral, got like 120,000 views in the week and a half before Burning Man. So within the burning community, that's pretty. Yeah, that hit a lot. And so all week long, people were like pretty impacted by starting their burn with that last final message. And that's part of the reason why burn was so massive and so impactful. Is I realized that idea of you're an artist with this new world of giving tools to people is huge. Like if we can shift people's perspective from I'm a consumer, I'm a passive recipient to entertainment, to I'm an artist to create, whether it is entertainment, whatever it is, if you can shift that to your head, then you become part of the creation of whatever's next in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something we chatted about on our interview. The realization that I had initially, long before I discovered this community, I was sort of like lost out in the world. I'm like, I'm an artist and nobody understands me and I'm really sensitive. And then so like eventually after going through all these experiences, I realized like that was the epiphany that I had. Every single person is an artist. We're all born artists. We're born to create. The very first thing we start to do when we start to learn how to move our limbs is we want to make something. We want to draw something.
One of the saddest things that I hear people say, and I hear a lot of people say it, and I heard someone said it to me at the burn, is like, oh, I'm not a creative type. Like, I'm not an artist. People are just like caught in this trap that they don't think that they can do that. And I think...
Was this person a virgin?
Yes, actually. Okay. It's her first year, yeah. And
don't worry, we'll break him in.
That's one of the amazing things about Burning Man, though, is people get drawn into things. I know, like, multiple different people who never did anything like that until they started hanging out in, like, the Burning Man community. And then they get dragged into things, and they start out, like, helping someone. And then now they have their idea, and they drag people into their idea and get shit done, Yeah,
because one of the most beautiful things that you learn is that no matter what your shtick is, no matter what style of art attracts you, there is an audience for it somewhere out there. There's somebody who's going to appreciate the fuck out of it, and there's somebody who will be moved by it, no matter what it is. There is 7 billion people on the planet. The likelihood that you will have an audience for your art, no matter what your art is extremely high, just statistically speaking.
There's we may have talked about this in an episode, but there's a new book by Elizabeth Gilbert called Big Magic, where she talks about the creative muse and the creative flow, and that generations ago everyone was a maker. Like your ancestors, all your relatives, they all made things a little bit more beautiful. They all created things. They all put adornments on their clothes, not because it had a commercial value. It's because what humans are. We're makers. And then in the current culture, at a certain age, we figure out, does this kid have enough skills for this to be a marketable capitalist skill? Are we going to be able to make money singing? Are you going to be able to do it? If not, let it go and stop being creative. Right. And so this innate part of being a human being is discouraged. Yeah. And Burning Man is one of those few places where it was like, no. You don't make this because you can get a return on your investment. You make this because it is what you are. And I think that the significant, like, I don't know, I think that the shift that can happen in people's head, like when I talked about you're an artist, I got a few people that pushed back that were like really offended. People that worked on big art and they were like, I went to school for training, you know, I spent all my time and money making these big sculptures, so how dare you say that if somebody goes out there in their RV that they're an artist? You're like, I'm an artist. And I was like, and I was like, you know what? There's like 1,000 galleries around the world where you have every right to defend your title as professional artist. But Burning Man is the magical place where we finally give people permission to say, actually, this is how you were born.
Yeah. I think people, because of the money-driven economy that you were just describing, people mistake craftsmen for artists. And you kind of see that with, like, you know, old school DJs who are bitching about how, like, oh, you're on Seratos, you're not really a DJ. I'm like, well, all we did is remove a step. Or you're just taking selfies. That's not a real... No, you know, what it is that technology is helping us bridge the gap. It's helping us remove some of the gap between what we can create in our minds and what we can create out in the world. And so because you've perfected a certain craft, yes, you may be an expert craftsman, and that probably gives you a massive advantage in creating your vision in the world. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that people who don't have that particular craft are not artists.
For the first 60, 70 years of DJing was like taking records and putting them on a record player and like putting the needle on it. That was what DJing was.
And then the next one. This is actually a couple of topics that was pretty interesting to me. This is my observation. I want to know if you guys had a similar observation or if it was just me. Historically, it felt like in the like Friday and Saturday, when the weekend warriors would all of a sudden like flood into town, the douchebag vibe would increase a bit, especially on the ends of the city, if you're on the 2 o'clock or 10 o'clock side. This year, I felt like that didn't happen. I was talking to multiple people, and they kind of felt like it was a fairly consistent vibe throughout the week. I wonder if anybody else had that experience.
My experience is that it's been moving towards distributing throughout the week really well. People realize that, am I going to go for 2 days? Partly it's the cost. Am I going to spend $500 to go for 2 days? Well, you know, maybe if I have my own airplane, sure, I can pop in and I'm Elon Musk or whoever brand name people were there. But in general, people are realizing, no, this is something that's worth doing for at least some extended period of time.
Yeah.
Burner Podcast.
Hey, quick break. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. Remember Cabina Exuro, Burner Podcast's project on Playa that you kept hearing advertisements for on this very show and on BMIR? You don't? Oh, well, okay. Well, it was a recording booth that we took to Burning Man this year. Anyway, we collected like 70 recordings from random burners stumbling by, and we're in the process of digging through those as we speak. Stay tuned to burnerpodcast.com. Some recordings will be up on our SoundCloud, and some will be cut into future episodes of this very show. If you didn't get a chance to record your story in Cabina Exuro on Playa, it will be making its way to Utopia, the San Diego regional burn that's happening October 13th through the 17th in the La Jolla Indian Reservation just outside of San Diego. That's in a couple of weeks. Tickets are still available, I believe. I don't know about how many, but maybe. Visit sdutopia.com. That's SD like San Diego, U like YOU, Topia.com. Let's get back to today's show.
Welcome home.
Well, I mean, I didn't have too many experiences with douchebags and negative people, but in talking with people, I did hear a number of frustrations and complaints, and a lot of it was later in the week. And I think part of that is because like my first year, I came on a Thursday at the end of the week and didn't realize how significant being a part of the building of the city is. Yeah. And when you start to experience how impactful it is to feel like you are a part of creating the city, you want to get there. You never want to get there late. And so it's the people that do show up on Thursday and try to videotape as many boobs as they can. Like, and so I did talk to a number of people that were like, hey, like, and that would like walk over to be like, hey, you can't just do that. Like, and all of those stories I heard were Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
I didn't catch any of that because I slept all night Friday and then left on Saturday.
Yeah, because a lot of the old school veterans, many of them will leave like Saturday morning, Friday morning.
Yeah. I like to leave Saturday morning.
Yeah.
I've done the burn.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's leave Saturday night, or leave Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday.
But I really like to get there early.
Yeah.
Getting there before it opens is amazing.
It's magic.
I agree. Yeah, I can't imagine. It's a blessing that I've had because I discovered this community before actually attending the burn. Like I've never actually seen. Is there like a sign outside that says "Welcome to Burning Man" with like flames on it? Yeah, never seen it.
There's a sign by the road. It doesn't. I don't know if it has flames on it, but it's like
nice
a big, nice, painted, pretty sign that says "Welcome to Burning Man." It's right at the gravel.
Was there? I'd heard from some people that there was more early entry this year. Like they're little by little, they've been stepping that up.
I think
Yeah,
so.
that's what it seems like.
Early entry is a responsibility.
Yeah.
You're not there to party early. Yeah. You're there to work on shit.
Although the party was going on,
There is
Friday,
party.
by
It was
Friday
crazy
night.
this year.
Thursday, Friday night, it was Burning Man. Burning Man was happening. It was like Thursday or Friday night was
But
the same as Monday night, 7 years ago.
On
or
Saturday
something.
morning at 9 in the morning, it's quiet.
Yeah.
People were sleeping.
Yeah.
Because they had to work that day.
Yeah.
Well, crazy. So, pre-burn, it was definitely early entry, and people would come up to our camp, all decked out, with their LEDs flying, and they'd be like, I'd be like, have a hammer in my hand. They're like, "Are you guys serving?" I'm like, is our bar open? We're working here, So it's I appreciate that you guys want to get started early, but I like it when everyone's working early. It just feels
And the Exodus hours have been extended too. I mean, we saw White Ocean was going on after Temple Burn, then right afterwards. The next day we were walking around and there was parties going on around town.
Yeah.
Little by little, the whole week is getting longer. Maybe that's why we didn't catch on to you're right. It was evenly distributed out throughout the week.
Well, one of the things we noticed is that I was in Gerlach on Sunday, and we were expecting just wall-to-wall traffic, and it wasn't. It was car.
That's because we were all held at the gate, right?
No, this was on the way in. Very slow. Very steady traffic, but not just crammed in, everybody waiting to leap in the gate.
Yeah.
So either people would showed up early, or people were distributing themselves. And,
Yeah. Which is, I guess that is a good thing. In general, the city is expanding. There's without a doubt a running theme of problems, of course, that even arise as with any city expands, but there's good things that come out of it too. And I feel like this thing that we're talking about right now, people seem to have paced themselves a little bit better. I feel like towards the end of the week, I was used to seeing a lot more trash on the ground, and it wasn't happening the same way. Perhaps because little by little people were coming in earlier and taking off a little bit sooner, and vice versa.
I didn't notice anything like that, and for probably the first year since my virgin year, I didn't have any interactions with anyone that I was like, who is this piece of shit? And I didn't see any trash, but I didn't go to raves Thursday through Saturday.
I was camped at the 2:00 side, that's not something that I plan to do again. Perky Parts was an awesome camp, by the way. They were awesome people. Had a lot of fun there. Danced my ass off. It was great, but man, it was a bitch and a half to venture out to go see friends at other camps because I was all the way at that end of the city. But whatever city planning did this year really helps, because I remember last year, just trying to get through one end to the other end of the 2:00 side was just insanity. And I did not have that experience this year. It was easy to get through. People were at their parties. They were divided up in right spaces. There was a good critical mass, it felt like, in different sections. But as we were speaking about, all the good things that have come from the expansion, one of the things that any growing civilization is going to deal with, there's no way around this, is crime. And there was, again, this is anecdotal. We don't have, I don't have the actual percentages in front of me, but there seems to have been an exponential increase in complaints about bike theft this year. Did you guys have any experience?
That? Yeah, I didn't.
There was a lot of stuff on. We were looking at social media. That conversation was happening. I personally know 3 different people that dealt with that. Somebody from your camp, actually. Brock had to deal with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was physically chasing them. Yeah. They had both bikes stolen twice. Once it was stolen, he recovered it. Then, the next day, either the same culprits or some new culprits came and took them. Nav, who is our network music editor and producer of Alkaline, his bike got stolen, like on breakdown day, and Ramiro, our art director, he walked around a little bit and he came back with a photo on his phone, and he said, "Is this your bike?" And I was like, "That's my bike." Where was it? It was at the camp next to us. I'm not going to name them, but we walk over there. And they have his bike, like it's next to somebody's tents, and his original lock is on the seat, and they've put a new lock on the wheel. What? So we picked it up and brought it back. Another friend of ours, Sam, he had his bike stolen like pretty much right at the beginning of the week. And after Nav brought it back, like I went over there and I talked to their camp lead, and I was like, well, I hope whoever this guy is, he had an idea of who it might be. It's like, well, I hope whoever this guy is, he doesn't camp with you next year. And hopefully they did the right thing. But it definitely felt like this year we were hearing a lot more stories about that. But Jake, it sounds like you thinking that was not the case.
I kind of forgot about Brock, and I feel bad about that. He had some really nice bikes. Mm-hmm. But this has been a problem since I started going to Burning Man. Yeah. And that's why everyone locks their bikes, And if you don't, I didn't lock my bike once this year. Yeah. I am kind of careful about where I stash my bike when I park it, and it was, I didn't mean to not lock my bike. I forgot to bring a fucking bike lock, and it worked out fine. Yeah. No problems.
I mean, it's one of those things where, like, I agree that I feel like that idea of like, man, there was more bike theft this year it's kind of like Burning Man used to be better, that kind of stories. Yeah. Because I remember, probably, 7-8 years ago, I remember hearing the story of how many empty moving vans they stopped at gate and with the assumption that if you bring an empty moving van, you want to fill it with something to leave. And so there are people who like realize there's going to be bikes everywhere. Let's get a truck full of, let's find as many what look like expensive mountain bikes and take them. And so,
was that a real thing or an urban myth? That was a real thing.
Oh, no, that's probably a real thing.
I mean, it's one of the reasons why they check, and see what you're bringing in. Yeah. So it's like, why would you bring an empty movie van?
You don't have any water. You don't have any this. Yeah. Oh, really? What huge camp are you with? Why do you have a box truck with nothing in it? That's definitely a question.
Because we had to return our other box truck so we wouldn't get double charged by the
first thing. We're working. No, but we're working gate though. Like. Where's your water? Where's your stuff? You don't have any stuff? If someone seems sketchy and they don't have any stuff and they're not immediately coming up with a theme camp that's recognizable, the gate attendant very well might go and get their supervisor and, look into it. Yeah. Wait, who are you? Wait, what camp are you with? Like, let's bust out the guide. Wait, what camp are you with? Is that a real camp? Like,
I think, as much a bummer as bike theft is, I think that in the situation where we have 70,000 people that have got their guard down and that are trusting like crazy, that the fact that there are some consequences and some bikes stolen is unfortunate, but relatively tiny. I think in the potential of how many people don't have their guard up. So I think that it's kind of like, I remember reading this story about this band of bandits that would go to raves and just rob people on ecstasy. Yeah. And it's like,
they'd rob their ecstasy?
Well, people at 2 a.m, they would run everything. They would rob their drugs, their wallet, everything. And people were like, oh my god, what's happening? You you just couldn't defend yourself because you were in this love mode. And I think that like, it scares me because Burning Man is ripe for abuse when you got everyone. So the fact that the consequences, you have to lock your bike up, seems not that big a deal.
Totally.
And bikes, it is unfortunate, but bikes are just stuff. Mm-hmm. And one of my long-term guidelines is do not bring anything to Burning Man. You do not want to see lost, destroyed, caught in flames, stolen.
It always feels
I like my bike. I'm glad my bike didn't get stolen, but if it did,
yeah.
It always feels when people post online like, I lost this cup or this crystal or this thing. It's like, it's my most prized possession. I have to. I'm like, why did you bring that?
Well, with the bikes, I mean, like I said, obviously, this is anecdotal, but it's for the sake of discussion. My observation of the posts online about people's bikes being stolen, the people that we personally know whose bikes were stolen, and this is the next subject that we're sort of moving towards, they were very expensive bikes. They looked like very expensive bikes. And it seems to me like this is touching on another part of what it's like to have a growing society. And that's ultimately what Burning Man is. It's an experiment in society. And every year it's growing a little bit more. And part of what happens is that you have more haves and have-nots that move into the city. Some of us live in one-bedroom apartments, and some of us live in luxury high-rises. And it feels like some of the response to what's happening is that a lot of the pranks that are coming out of it, it's people who consider themselves to be have-nots, people who see themselves as like, well, I don't live in an RV, I don't have like the expensive plug-and-play camp. They feel justified in, for example, stealing a more expensive bike. And I'm just wondering, sort of like, what are some of the observations that you guys are having on what it's like for the city to be growing, and you have sort of like different neighborhoods that are popping up and more money is flooding into certain parts? Are you seeing any of that? Is there any thoughts you have on that?
I think it has more to do with the consequences of growth without the more traditional or older aspect of bringing in people on a personal, individual basis. I mean, we're mainstream now. And so you can learn about Burning Man and get a ticket and get in line for the event and never really have a conversation with somebody who kind of gives you information about what the principles are, why you're a part of the city, why it's participatory. And so you can get through your first year and be like, and still be in taking mode. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how you steal a bike, is when you don't realize that actually there's no value of a bike that is more valuable than the experience of feeling like you're a part of Burning Man. Mm-hmm. So once people have that shift, it's not a have or have not. It's being a part of the city or not a part of the city, being a citizen or not.
Yeah.
I would also say, as far as the bike thing goes, like, half of the fucking bikes that get stolen are stolen by people that are too high to know that they're stealing a bike.
Yeah.
Or they honestly mistake the bike for someone else's bike, or...
Which is why most of the time a simple $5 bike lock is fine.
Is more than enough.
Zip it around the wheel, you're done.
To keep it. Now we're talking about like a fancy, crazy electric bike.
Yeah, the other half is
that's just straight up theft.
I heard stories of a camp reported that a dozen of their Segways were stolen.
Yeah.
$4,000 each.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are Segway. Fuck, seriously? But yeah, that to me, I think that falls into that same kind of categories. Which actually, perfect opportunity to discuss what happened at White Ocean.
Let's do it.
That was the big controversy this year,
as we have understanding of it, which is
that's part of
certainly
the
flawed.
Yeah. Well, they posted on their Facebook page that a band of hooligans, I think it was described as, came in and cut their cords, glued their doors shut, fucked up their refrigeration, so some of their food went bad. Which is okay.
so that was what they posted,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was a really fantastic post on burn.life. I don't know if you saw that. But
I didn't. Tell us about it.
Okay, so there's it listed out all these examples.
This wine is fantastic, by the way, John.
Thank
You brought it out. That was great.
So it pointed out all these firsthand reflections from people that have been contractors for White Ocean. So White Ocean is a camp that has an extensive budget. They give a huge value to the city, and they spend a huge amount on contractors. However, they have a history of not paying all their contractors all the money they're owed. And so a combination of that, this extended examples of jilted employees, combined with the fact that the damage that was done was very intentional. Like, to know where their spider boxes are, to know like that's not just some random class war. That's an insider. If you were going to do class warfare, you would go to K Street. Why would you do White Ocean, who gives a ton to the city? You would go to
They piss someone off, dude, and you can go into any camp and find out where their electrical is, and find out where their big water is.
But it wasn't a class warfare thing. It was an individual who was upset, not a class warfare thing.
Yeah.
I don't think.
No, it was people that were disgruntled with their camp, for sure.
Yes,
for sure.
Which I think is a lot different.
There are better targets if you're just going to go and hit the.
You want to punish someone for being a plug and
camp
play. Yeah, they're better targets for plug and play, disruptors of our city. That being said, like, I think that one of the big woes, dangers to our city and its growth is the whole contractor class. Because if you're a contractor and the reason why you're building something is because you have a transactional expectation of payment, then there's the possibility of being disgruntled. If your labor is instead because you want to give to the city and get the feeling of joy of gifting to the city, that whole possibility of being disgruntled is not even part of the equation. So the fact that this even happened, I think, is a symptom of a problem with the growth of cities to camps that have contractor classes.
Right.
I think that paid labor pre-event is part of the system of growth. I think paid labor during event is a huge problem.
Oh, that is fucking fascinating. Because that is the experiment, to have a gifting economy. And for whatever reason, there's all of a sudden this other entity that has entered the organism, if you will. And it doesn't work with what the rest of it has been built as.
And if you can't provide the gift that you want to give with volunteer labor and gifts, then I think you need to scale back.
Yeah.
I want smaller sound camps. I want less elaborate things. If your camp can't provide it as a gift, then I'd rather you do less.
Wow.
At the same time, just to play devil's advocate, some of these camps that are paying people for labor during the event are enabling people who would not otherwise be able to make it to the burn to make it to the burn. And it's a really fine line between someone who is getting paid $1,000 for the week to work 20 hours and still gets to have like a full-on Burning Man experience, but they're working probably less hours than, I did at Gate.
Here's
And someone who's getting paid $2,000 to work 45 to 50 hours and doesn't get to have a Burning Man experience, and then some of those people are doing that because they actually really need that money, but then at the same time they're at Burning Man. It's like, would it have been better to have made that money at home, in the kitchen in San Francisco, or would it have been better to go to Burning Man, where when you take your break, you're at Burning Man and you're in a camp full of burners and you're serving a camp full of burners. I'm not saying that someone who's that a camp that has that sort of setup that's ideal or anything, but at the same time, the people that participate in it and the people that set it up, it gets to a really crazy gray area.
I'll tell you why it's poison.
All kinds of different.
Here's why it's poison.
Variations
is because, let's say, the camp next to me has got a professional staff that's cooking. So they've got a chef, they've got a sous chef, they've got all these people that are getting paid to provide the meal. And yes, during their breaks they get to go burn. In my camp, we're all volunteers. So now this system that up until now everyone was giving joyfully, now I'm like, wait a minute, they're getting paid to do the same job I'm doing? I'm a chump. I don't want to do this for free. I'd like to get paid. And so suddenly this whole economy that was based on gifting and love and feeling joy starts to become transactional. And I think that I agree, yes, if you can't afford it, it's what a cool opportunity to be at the burn and get paid. But it's poison, and I think it affects the whole vibe of the city. If you're an artist and you're doing it for free, and there's another artist that's getting paid, with art grants a different thing, but if you're being paid on site to be an artist, why wouldn't I want to get paid to be an artist? And if everybody wants to get paid for their gifts, it's not a gift economy anymore.
Do we have any information by any chance on where Burning Man stands on this as an organization? We can look this up
on the
afterwards.
neck.
On the neck.
Well, I think that they've done some things I don't think they've come out publicly because I know that there are camps that have picked up laborers at Home Depot. I mean, there's migrant workers that are picked up at Home Depot and live for the week at camps.
Wow.
And get paid and food and booze, and that's just how some of these camps are done. And I'm like, what? And I think it's a very hard thing to police. How do you as an organization?
They get paid in food and booze and what? But not cash?
I think they get cash as well.
So I know about Burning Man because one of my good friends was squatting in a bank in Berkeley in 2000 and got swooped up by some girl who was like, "You don't have anything better going on. Come build Burning Man." And took him out there, and he was DPW and worked out there, getting paid nothing but food and booze and appreciation and cigarettes probably too, you know, and other whatever else was going around.
So I think having your accommodations and your food paid for is not the same thing as cash. And I think that if you are working for the organization as DPW or something like that, I think that's an exception as well. It's the economy of camps giving gifts that creates this contractor class. That's where I feel like, and I mean, you can tell from my voice, it's something that like I'm a little heated about it. It's something that I feel is, because it's so easy to like talk around why it's not a big deal, but I think it is a big deal.
Yeah, no, this is really interesting. I've literally never even thought about this angle before. And I can say that if we ended the show literally right now, I'd be like, all right, well, I'm happy with that. That's really fascinating. And I mean, ultimately, the biggest life lesson that I've had over and over is that life is about, you're in the gray area. There's never going to be black and white rules on what works and what doesn't. But the reason that this particular community comes together is because we enjoy the conversation.
When I love that they're principles, not laws.
Right.
Like no one goes into burner jail for mooping. It's just like we police ourselves. We have guidelines. We stretch and learn and have the dialogue. I agree. Yeah. It's part of the magic is that it's we're all in the classroom together.
Yeah. Because I mean, that sort of transitions to the next thing that I wanted to hit on, which was the prank that was pulled on the 747. I don't know enough about the camp that brought the 747. Does anybody here know about them?
I know very little about them.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of the passing conversations that I had with people on Playa about it was just like that. All right, well, they just threw a lot of money at it. It's not very creative. They brought the head of a 747 out there, and like it was a chill space on the bottom.
They overpromised, underdelivered as well.
Yeah,
repeatedly.
What did they promise?
Last year, they promised they were going to bring a 747 to the Playa. This year, they promised they were going to bring most of a 747 to the Playa.
And then like the front part was brought.
The front part, which was a big achievement. I mean, I drove up that road. Dragging that thing up that road was a major achievement.
Yeah.
Supposedly the front part is going to stay out there somewhere. And the rest of it is going to come out next year or whatever. It's a constant.
They're adding to it little by little.
Fundraising endeavor, kind of the way the Statue of Liberty was built.
And then 5 years from now, it takes off.
Maybe. Yeah, that'd be great. It takes a bunch of people to Bali or something.
Many people sort of, some people connected the 747 situation with the White Ocean situation. That was actually, Tanasi, our online editor, saw a connection there. So the long and short of it was that the prank that was pulled on them was that some people thought that it was DPW types. I don't know. But they came dressed as like angry stewardesses and hijacked the plane.
This is a prank.
That is a beautiful prank. Yeah,
it's a good prank.
They threw like a giant banner outside saying we will only negotiate with Larry.
Yeah.
So this is if you've got beef with something. So I know some of the beef with the 747 was that it's not a particularly impressive work of art. You basically threw a lot of money at something, and so the feeling, again, I don't know enough about the people who made it, but the feeling was that it was rich people who wanted to be creative and they didn't really pull it off very well. And
I'm pretty sure the people that worked on sawing that thing off worked their ass off.
I'm sure.
The people that got it out there.
Yeah,
I would say there's lots of shitty art on the Playa, and like, you really, like, the only business you would have complaining about any of it is if, you know, you paid a bunch of money and then the project completely under-delivered. But in that case, like, maybe you should have worked harder to pull it off, you know?
No, well, the point that I was going to make, though, is that prank, like we were saying, was very on par with how our community responds to shit. Whereas, like, White Ocean, if it was done by pranksters, it was just mean-spirited.
Well, and that prank, the plane prank was additive. It was taking an existing expression and adding a layer of creativity and art
Right.
on top of it. It's kind of like the bunny march, and then you have the carrot protest. You're like, it's this layering of expression that doesn't detract from the original. Like, I mean, if they left, the negotiations and torched the thing, that would be bad. But it was a temporary, additive creative expression, which I thought was exactly how the community responds.
Right. And they messed with some people inside. I mean, it was brilliant. I thought 747 looked really fucking cool. Like, I rode by it a few times. I didn't actually get a chance to go inside, but I heard
they
it was cool to
apparently
hang out
had a
inside.
really, really intricate shtick that they did with boarding passes and with.
Yeah.
I never experienced
pins.
it. Yeah.
Like luggage, they had luggage.
Yeah. So they've,
That's brilliant. We loved it, though. How did that hijacking end? Does anybody know? I don't actually know how that story ends.
Maybe it's not that funny.
I think there was a peaceful resolution made. The hijackers were released.
Okay.
I recorded an interview for this show with Steven Raspa that never aired. Nobody's heard it. Long and short of it was he had like a long day of like meetings, and he was just really exhausted, and he felt that he could have done more justice to some of the questions that I asked. So we decided to reschedule it and do another interview. But one of the things that he talked about, which is, for me, has been the big takeaway from a lot of the experiences that I had, and just even this conversation that we've been having right now. He said that earlier on, a lot of the people who initially started going out to Black Rock Desert from the old beach burn days felt that as soon as new groups of people started showing up, the experiment was over. And it just wasn't edgy enough, like, this is done, we're over it, let's walk away. And it was Larry and, a crew of people that stood around like, you know what? No, the experiment's not over. This is only one step of it. And I can tell you, like, for me, observing the city and having this conversation with you guys is really showing me, like, the experiment is so not fucking over. Because every year it increases exponentially and new layers get added to it and new things get added to it. And then, some of it is not the way you like the good old days, but the experiment is far from over.
Go ahead. If you want to just go and burn something down in the middle of the desert with 100 of your friends and shoot guns and blow shit up, you can still do that.
Totally.
Just go and do
the
that.
BLM will show up.
We do that, Arash. We went and did that, like 6 months ago or something. We went and had a good, shooting, blowing shit up, anarchy fest, fucking no rules, whatever.
I don't remember a chunk of that night, but
you can still do that.
Yeah.
Burning Man is something else. Burning Man has evolved into a bigger, different type of experiment, and it'll probably continue to do that. They just purchased Fly Geyser. There's going to be like permanent burning shit going on at some point, probably. But it's pretty exciting. Things not stagnant
That's actually,
at all.
I think that's it. I mean, I don't know if we're talking about that specifically, but like, I got to visit the Fly Ranch, at the beginning of my trip out there.
Nice,
and
so did I.
It was incredible. It's incredible. Like, and that was like further evidence. Like, holy shit! Is the experiment over? On the contrary, we have a whole new fork in the potential of the experiment. Like, Burning Man is this incredibly intricate and evolved experiment in temporary and in transitory and in burning things at the end. Fly Ranch is this whole new undefined way of sustainability, potentially, of integrating stewardship with the environment, of potentially long-term static art or art that continues to grow. And it's like the dialogue is just beginning of this whole new expression of what our community can do. So I think that, like, on the contrary, I think that the potential and the limits of what our community can do and where it's going has never been bigger and more exciting.
Absolutely. And it's interesting with Fly Ranch, because I remember in the past year there had been some chatter about the possibility, like, Burning Man was not close to the idea of leaving Black Rock Desert and going to Utah.
Right.
I wonder if some of that was a political tactic.
Absolutely.
Because then they doubled down by buying Fly Ranch.
Well, with the entertainment tax, I mean, it was part of the whole, like, negotiations with Nevada. It was like, we might leave. I mean,
right.
So they couldn't give their hand away and say, we're staying here no matter what, because then their negotiations would end.
Yeah, because, I mean, at the end of the day, even if we did leave, like, oh well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's the community, it's the people. That's what makes.
Well,
this
and
forward.
one of the amazing parts of it that I think is a huge successful part of the experiment is the spin-offs. The Utopia and Africa Burn and all over the
Blazing
world.
Burn.
All these amazing, And that's where they just said, well, what if we license this and call this a regional event, and then all of a sudden it spiders out. Yeah. And even if the heart dies, the rest of it is exploding.
Black Rock City is New York City, and then you can go to Africa Burn, and that's, I don't know, San Diego.
Well,
like, we have other cities.
Like, if you're craving something more raw and less mainstream, and, like, dude, there are a lot of regionals now. And the magic in those is legit.
Element
there's
11
also
was amazing. I went to Element 11 last year, and the whole time we were there, we were like, wow, this must be like the closest thing you could get to what Burning Man was in like 1995 or 1996 or something. And then I come home and I'm like, perusing the internet, and I see Danger Ranger's blog, and he's like, oh yeah, I just got back from Element 11. That was the closest thing to Burning Man 95 that I've seen since then, or whatever. And it's like, that stuff is going on all over the world now.
So I went to Blazing Swan in Western Australia this year, and it was like, it totally shifted my whole perspective on regionals and the burn and the scalability and the possibility of the movement, because in my head, I kind of had this feeling like regionals were like farm league, where you like practice how to learn how to be a burner. But then in Western Australia, there's like 3,000 people there, and of those 3,000, maybe 100 are ever going to go to the burn. So this isn't a regional to them. This is their burn. Yeah. And these are people that have spent their entire year building stuff, and they were hardcore. They were dedicated. They were passionate about the principles. And I was like, and it was small enough that, like, if you craved an early burn experience where it's raw and like, I think that we have a world full of them right now, and they're growing all the time.
And not only the regionals, but inspired by or related to or similar to the LIB. Yeah. And the other one that I want to go to is Wasteland Weekend. Yeah. Yeah. Which is not a Burning Man TM related production.
Even like Desert Hearts.
Desert Hearts.
They've got like 3,000 people or something, and it's not Burning Man, but it's very Burning Man inspired.
A music.
It's not a music festival.
Pay for the music festival. Get your $5 bottle of Budweiser.
Yeah. That being said, like, after going to LIB and I love Lucidity. I've loved a lot of festivals that are not 10 principle events and not sanctioned events. I've come to my personal conclusion that the 10 principles and non-commodification and a gifting economy, like, those have a dramatic effect. And there are festivals that have a magic to them, but in the tiers of the degree of magic that happens, the 10 principles are the pinnacle. It's the high water mark. It is like, if I have a choice, I'm always going to pick one where the 10 principles are being followed.
It feels like Burning Man is New York City. Regionals are like, I don't know, San Diego, some other like smaller cities that don't have, not like maybe LA. Like, you have other ones that are bigger, right? Then you'll go to like something like Desert Hearts, and like that is like the festival. That actually is a festival that's like maybe outside the city. But it seems like we're adding like another layer of consciousness to how we're navigating the world, and that's what I'm seeing with Burning Man and the regionals happening. Your Electric Poncho, the very first episode that I had you on. I mean, it's a lot of fucking burners. It's not a Burning Man event, but holy shit, that had a ton of magical, amazing experiences.
The thing about that, though, is that was probably as close as you could get to a 10 Principles event without actually being like a Burning Man sanctioned regional. Like, it was non-profit. It was Leave No Trace. It was
no vending.
It was no vending. It was, it's not the only event like that, but there are other events that are like that.
Tons of them. So on the note of the when we were talking about negotiating earlier, last year, A Street and the Esplanade was like covered in law enforcement. And this year there was definitely a decrease.
Supposedly, this is a rumor that I heard, they were only stopping vehicles, and there were no like stings and like plain clothes. Just a rumor that I heard was going around, but I didn't hear of anything like that happening.
Yeah. They're going to need to get used to the environment that happens when marijuana becomes legal.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, all of their powers, all of their,
Yeah.
well, I think that's optimistic, but
Nevada has it on the ballot.
Nevada has it, but the U.S. needs to have it in order for it to be, but that's taking away all sorts of police powers to get into our lives under some pretext.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to, I don't know, rethink their mission.
Yeah.
And I think some of that is happening. I
they
know
are.
that there was a change of the sheriff in the
Was there a
county.
change of sheriff? I didn't know that.
In Washoe County, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And
It only
that
lasted a year,
was
huh?
a big deal.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Which doesn't affect the BLM, who was also, I don't know. I think that possibly they're getting more used to the idea of what's going on out there, and that it's like that it's something that's so big and awesome, you don't kill the golden goose. And the golden goose isn't just a golden goose in money for Washoe County and money for the BLM. The golden goose is like a cultural golden goose.
Yeah.
This is a cultural institution of America now. This is like Mardi Gras or 4th of July or something.
I think it's one of those things where that it's very dependent on the political landscape. You know, like there's been some years where they have prosecuted everything in an attempt to make the case that Burning Man is more dangerous than it is, so that they can ask for higher fees from Burning Man. And so there's all these kind of like power plays that go on that are more than just, you know, one sheriff's opinion, or like the DA makes some, you know, it's so it's kind of like, I feel like it's one of those places where like really grown up stuff starts to play in that is out of our control. At the same time, like our camp, we're on the Esplanade, and so we have all sorts of policies and trainings that we give to everybody in camp, so that we don't invite anybody to camp that you don't know. We have like wristbands, so people, like, if you see somebody in camp that is not, you know, on the roster, because we don't want to invite law enforcement into our private areas. That and so what's weird though is now over the years I've had so many people that have gotten entrapped or stung or things like that, that now every time somebody acts weird, someone's like, I just had an encounter with an undercover. They asked me 3 times if I knew where the party was. I'm like, I'm not sure if that means that they're a police officer. You know?
I had somebody ride by me. Have you seen Lucy? No. Fuck off. But you know, oftentimes that can be a legitimate answer. I mean, what can you do?
Yeah.
So we're gonna go ahead and slowly wrap it up over here. Obviously, seems to be all in agreement that we all had pretty awesome burns. You said great. Fred said great.
It was great.
Can I share one thing that I just finished today? So I got back from the burn and I had like tons of, you know,
dust.
Well, dust, but also like necklaces and all these cool swag.
You're a swag magnet.
And so I decided I would put it all on and take a photograph to like thank everybody. And so I looked like Mr. T with like, you know, wacky 3D printed things all over me and medallions, and I'm like, okay, as soon as I'm done with this, I'm gonna put this in a box probably and like lock it away in this treasure that no one's. And I was like, I wonder if other people would want these. And so I posted online and said, hey, let's do a gifting experiment. You know, like I received joy from this. People gave me the gift. I thanked them. They got the appreciation. I got the joy of getting it. Maybe we could keep it going. And so I posted online and was like, hey, if people like didn't get, you know, a gift, or you see something that I'm wearing and you like it, or you know, if you didn't get it, you didn't go to the burn, but you want some of the magic of this cool stuff, point out which one you want and make a donation to First Saturdays, this homeless charity in San Diego. And over the next 48 hours, raise $700 for First Saturdays for the homeless. Nice. And so I went to the post office today with like, you know, 50 packages and sent all over the world. And so people are going to have Burning Man magic medallions all over the world, and it helps the homeless.
That's fucking awesome.
So gifting in the default world.
Yeah, cool. You dig it. My question, that's beautiful. Did you guys have any experiences like that? Did you give away some of your gifts? Or did you not?
I did several times.
Like you said, though, Halcyon's a gift magnet, though. They're just being thrown at him. He's walking around on Playa.
The gifts I gave were, and we talk about a lot about gifts. What is it? The gifts I gave were I was standing by a burn barrel, and somebody walked up at this woman with a suitcase. Said, "I'm camped on the other side of the playa, and my suitcase weighs 50 pounds. I don't know how I'm going to get there." I said, "Throw it in my wagon. Let's go."
Yeah.
And took her over there.
Nice.
And it was amazing. That was the amazing sort of experience that allowed me to do that for somebody, and dropped her off at her camp and said goodbye.
Yeah.
That's way better than I thought you were going to say, so you went through her luggage and burned half of it so that it weighed less.
That would have been a good idea. What the fuck did you bring anyway?
So I want to know, you gentlemen all have many, many years of experience at the burn. You've watched it grow. You have a mental graph, if you will, of what it looks like. I wonder if you have any predictions of what you think we will see more of next year. How do you see changes happening? What changes have you seen over the course of the past few burns that you think we'll see more of next year?
I think change is kind of happening slower out there as the city has gotten bigger and things have gotten nailed down a little bit more. One change that you might see is more people possibly going out to Fly Ranch. That's gonna happen over the next few years as they figure out how many people they can accommodate out there. And it's probably going to be a while before like anyone can just like go there. But I think the option of at least going to see the geyser is going to be like more present, and it maybe not next year, but the year after, and at some point there's probably going to be some stuff going on out there, and that at some point will probably become part of like some people's Burning Man experience is going over there and seeing what the permanent installment looks like out there.
Right.
Yeah, I think that my understanding is that even answering the question of what is going to happen at Fly Ranch is going to be a multi-year process of dialogue and figuring out how that's going to be. But I think that once that answer starts to manifest, that it will filter into ways that the burn is expressed. The other thing that I think that is I'm starting to see more of, and I expect to continue to see more of, and some of that is like if you just see like the power players and resources that went into the purchase of Fly Ranch. Like we now have this mainstream event that is no longer shameful, that leaders of industry and people in charge of massive resources not only attend but brag about. They put in their job resumes, and so we now have more and more, not of this like plug and play, come people and check it out, but we have this integration of people tied to significant resources and networks that are having transformative burn events, burning experiences. So I'm excited by the possibility of Burning Man continuing to be this kind of not just a place that brings the circus freaks and the gypsies, but
not that there's anything wrong with circus freaks.
No, and they should keep coming.
Some of my best friends.
Amen. But I think that
I'm a bearded woman.
That as the community begins to more and more, I think, accept the rich and powerful and integrate them so that they're not spectators, that they're actually part of the city and citizens of the city, that will enhance the city's experience, it'll enhance the gypsies' experience, and it'll enhance the world at large.
That was this year's theme, by the way.
Was it? Oh, like the Medicis and the Spon?
Yeah, the Renaissance, Da Vinci's workshop.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Good point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, so I guess that's last year. I'm 1 year behind.
I that people who are not burners often ask me when they find out that I've been to Burning Man, like, "Ooh, the Burning Man, I heard it's gone mainstream and it's not the same as this." Like that's the immediate response that
people always say like, "Oh, I wish I got to go before. It was cool." I'm like, "Have you gone?" Like, no. I'm like, "What? How do you?"
No, you know, they're like, oh, isn't there too many partiers going out? I'm like, you know what? I don't give a fuck how we get you in. So if you're in for the techno, or if you come in for the art, or if you come in for the orgy dome, I don't give a shit why you show up. Something will hook you at some point. Maybe it's your first burn, maybe it's your 6th regional. At some point, you will have a transformative experience. I feel absolutely certain about that because I've seen it already a few times.
And then you see yourself as an artist.
Yeah.
And then your role in the world is different.
Yeah. That right there.
And you see that not only are the artist, but you are what you put into the experience.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you're only willing to have the experience standing on somebody else's back, that's the experience you're going to have. If you want to have the experience of crawling in the dirt and being the one to to hammer in your own rebar and sweat and breathe in the dust, you're going to have that transformative experience.
Yeah. There's a million things that can happen, and even if you are, harp on the wealthy a lot, but even if you are, you know, one of the rich guys, like, fuck it, like maybe a little experience that you have on Playa changes the way that you interact with one of your employees at some point. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is a massive step forward. We can't have the exact same parameters for every single human being. So whatever hooks you in, great, come, you're all welcome. I'm certain you're going to get something out of it, and I'm certain we all will. That's the way of the world.
In the words of Edward from Backcountry, Burning Man is alive and well. He said that as we were walking around, and it was kind of like something that was like bouncing around the camp a little bit.
I love that.
You know,
I love
like,
that.
You know, like people are jaded, but like really, Burning Man's alive.
People say, you know, like, I heard Burning Man jump the shark. I'm like, do you know how fucking cool it would be if you actually fucking jumped the shark?
That sounds like a great note to wrap up the show. Thank you guys so much.
Thank
this
you.
has been fucking wonderful.
Awesome.
You guys are awesome.
We should totally go to Burning Man next year.
Alright. New episodes are up on the 1st and 3rd Wednesdays of the month. Typically, wasn't up the first one this time around, but normally on the 1st and 3rd Wednesdays of the month. We are on multiple podcasting broadcast platforms such as Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Spreaker, among many others. Of course, iTunes. We're also on iHeartRadio now. If you want to listen to the show, it's not hard to find. The Burner Podcast movement is made possible due to the efforts of various contributing producers, as well as our regular staff, which include our network music editor, Navjeet Sarna, who is also the producer of Burner Podcast Presents Alkaline, our online editor, Tori Massey, producer, Amber Rose, contributing producer, Super Suze, recording engineer, Freckle, chief Playa scientist, Ramiro Martinez, special projects manager, Paul McCarthy, executive producer, Meg King, and you, dear listener. We have you to thank for all of this. Our intermission music is by Duckman. Check out his music over at duckmansd, like San Diego, .bandcamp.com. The Burner Podcast theme song is America's Horseman No Name remix, produced by Joman. Check out his music at soundcloud.com/DJ Joman. So until next time, love and light and other crap. Good night.